Do you know how to prepare for the entrepreneurial journey? Well, today we're going to find out with some simple tips. So stay tuned for the journey to start. So, welcome to another Supercharge with Emily podcast. What is normally Momentum Monday, but I think it's going to be whatever day you catch it on today. So, welcome. Fluffy joins me in welcoming you one more time to today's topic of how to prepare for the entrepreneurial journey. And I've come to find out that you can't take these things for granted. I get asked this question a lot as a business coach and as an entrepreneurship, the supercharge coach. People ask this question, especially people who are trying to transition from their 9 to 5 or their current work status to starting a business of sorts, or even if it's something on the side or something full time, but wanting to know how do they take those initial steps to make that transition. So today, that is our topic of what we will be discussing to share that. But first, let's get the screen ready that we need to share that with you, shall we? Okay, let's see what happened to it. Oh my gosh, I had it all ready for you and then it decided, to do its own thing. All right. I think we have it back now. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, here we are. How to prepare for the entrepreneurial journey. And I would love to know in the comments below your thoughts on what you think are some of the important first steps to take. And what would you recommend, either from your expertise or your positioning or your what you've experienced, or maybe what you may not have and you'd like to kind of know more yourself. So again, I'm answering this question that I get asked quite a bit. And I want to share two key things. And these two key things obviously have multiple other steps involved. But the first thing is going to sound really simple, really obvious. And it's like, duh, doesn't that make sense? Start by using what you have. Using what you have, start where you are. And my mom always had this saying, which is dip your buckets where you are. Dip your buckets where you are. Instead of going far afield trying to find where you should go and what you should do, focus on what you have in real time in front of you. And you're like, okay, well, I'm in a job and I want to transition to something else. Well, the first thing you have to understand is it is a gradual process. Rarely is it an immediate, instant jump. It is a gradual process that involves a certain amount of patience. So the time and resources is what I have listed here. So the first thing, time. How much time do you have? How much time can you allot to this new endeavor? And I want you to be very honest with yourself about this, because many times we're very unrealistic about the time that we have at our disposal, and maybe inflexible in changing how we use the time that we do have. And I always tell people you cannot manage time. You can only allocate time, because you can't manage time. Time cannot be managed by anyone. You can only manage the use of your time. So now we want to focus on how do you use the time that you do have. So if you're working 9 to 5, let's say you get up in the morning, I don't know, 5, 4:30, 6, 7, depending on what you have to do. You may want to consider getting up that much earlier. Could it be half an hour earlier? Could it be an hour earlier? Maybe there's something you need to examine about your morning routine. Is there some thing that you do that you may need to stop doing so that you can do something else. For example, a lot of people enjoy watching the news first thing in the morning. I'm not one of those people, but that's not the point. The point is, how necessary is it for you to start every single day with the news? That's just a simple question that I put to you, because there are things that we do by rote many times that we're just used to doing it. We just do it. We turn on the television, we do these things, and they take up this space of time. So let's suggest, or I want to suggest to you that maybe instead of doing that, you might set aside that half an hour to work on your business concept. Reflect on it, think it through, maybe watch a webinar, watch a YouTube channel like you're doing right now, or watch a podcast, or listen to a podcast like you're doing, and set aside that time to work on that business concept. And again, depending wherever you are in the process, how close you are to it, whether you have an idea or don't have an idea, or you're just brainstorming in the brainstorming phase, or you do have a concept and you just need to take it to the next step, it's the same process. How much time can you set aside? So again, either early in the morning, is that feasible? In the middle of the day, maybe for your lunchtime, could you set aside another chunk of time? And after work, when you come home, obviously there are obligations of the day and things that people have to do, but can you shift doing something that you normally would do and do this instead? And so that's the first thing I want you to think about. What time? And so it doesn't make sense to give you a long list of things you should be doing when you haven't even reserved the space for it. So make space for your entrepreneurial idea. The second thing, or part B of the number one, use what you have. So A is time, B is resources. What resources do you have at your disposal? Many people have the false notion that you need a lot of money to start a business day one. That is not the case. You start where you are with what you have, and ideally small. You don't have to go out and get $1 million to launch a business in order to get it off the ground. And what tends to trip up a lot of people is they think they need more than they need initially, and then they can maybe potentially waste what they have. So we want to be prudent, we want to be frugal, and I talk a lot about this in my book, The Little Girl's Guide to Entrepreneurship. I share the history of what we went through, what I went through in our business, my sister and I, and how to really optimize the use of your resources, because you usually tend to have, I won't say you have more than you think, you probably do, but it's not even about more or less. It's how you use what you have, whether it's a lot or it's a little. Okay, so it's not about having a ton or not having enough, but how do I use what I have efficiently and carefully? So I really want that to marinate with you a little bit. I know it mightn't sound so exciting to you, but believe you me, it is critical, it is imperative, and it makes an enormous difference. All right, let me get to the next slide where I'm going to tell you about the second thing. And this might be the hardest part. The second thing you need to do as you prepare to embark on your entrepreneurial journey is to learn how to encourage yourself. Again, it may sound very basic. It may sound almost banal for some people, but it is everything. Encourage yourself. Many times on the entrepreneurial journey, you are alone. Like, no one else sees what you see. No one else can fully appreciate your vision, at least in the beginning. And you have to be willing to endure that period of time. It could be relatively short, it could be longer for some, where everyone will unanimously declare you crazy. And you have to be okay with that for a little while, not for too long, because you don't want them to prove it to be true. So you have to realize that people will think you're kind of crazy. You're giving up a great job. You already have a good job. You're already doing pretty well. Why would you disturb that? Why would you want to change that? Why would you want to not continue as you are? And trying to explain this to someone can be hard sometimes, especially when it's your family. And so it is a conversation that has to be had. You can't ignore the people who will have an impact, will be impacted by what you do. So it's not to say throw caution to the wind and be reckless. To the contrary, I am suggesting that by the time you get to a certain point where you feel that there's an entrepreneurial opportunity worth pursuing, that and you've already committed that you want to do so, you have to realize that there's going to come a point in time, like I just finished saying, where you're out there on a limb. You're on a limb, and again, people may not share your vision, but as you go bring it more to fruition and start to kind of test it and prove it. So when I started my company, my Kasuri business, no one in my family kind of like thought it made any sense because it was just me in my room with my little baby filing cabinet, keeping my files of conversations with people they had no idea of, keeping records of things that I wasn't making any money. It didn't make sense to anyone until I got my first sale. And I got my next sale. And I got my third sale until our living room was filled with product that the whole family had to help me ship. I remember one time we had a shipment. This is before I had a warehouse, before any such thing. The basement was my warehouse. My room was my office. Started with what I had. We had a shipment to, I think, a department store. Yeah, out of my house. And it couldn't fit in our house, the where merchandise we had to ship. We had to store it on our front porch. As my dad would say, batten down the hatches. We had to put the tarp over it. We had to cover it up. Mercifully, it didn't have to stay long because it shipped out pretty soon. And I remember the day the UPS truck came, he said, "Oh my Lord, I have to move all this." Yes, you do. So, okay, I digress, but the point is start where you are, start small, and one day they will join you in your endeavor instead of thinking you're crazy. So they didn't think I was too crazy for too long once things start to change. So you have to be willing to endure this period of time. I mean, I don't know how else to say it to you, but being able to encourage yourself, developing a certain grit, a certain resilience of mind, believing in what you really are about makes the difference. Whether you go forward or you just keep dreaming about your idea. And I'm saying this to the person who has had an entrepreneurial idea for a long time and you just keep sitting on it and sitting on it. And you're looking for some external validation, for someone to say, "Yay, go and do that." Give you the applause, and there's none forthcoming. But you feel strongly in yourself that there is something there. Well, that's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to that person, to you, if that's you. Do not ignore that voice that you hear. Just because everybody else doesn't see it, hear it, or understand it, day one doesn't mean it's not valid. No, obviously, there comes a point in time where the marketplace has to lend their validity to something. Are they going to buy it? The first time, the second time, and the third time. And if that's starting to happen, then you have that extra, the true validation, actually the only validation that you need. If someone is willing to buy what you have, that's your validation, okay? So, but unfortunately, we tend to listen to people too much and allow them to discourage us and even talk us out of our own vision and out of our own dream. So let me just recap quickly today. Let me know if you'd like more details on this topic. If you want me to walk you more through the road, down the road of preparing for entry into the entrepreneurial journey, let alone taking the entrepreneurial journey, which of course we help you do in the Supercharge Club and Supercharge CEO, which you can all check out on superchargeclub.com. But in the meantime, how do you even get to that step? And that's what I want people to know, that everything is a process and everything leads you forward. So just as a quick recap, how do we prepare? The first thing is you want to use what you have, the time and the resources, be realistic about how much time you have available to start, and what resources do you have at your disposal, and what you actually truly need or not need. Can you work out of your house before taking on external space and taking on this crazy overhead you don't need? Okay, so that's number one. Use what you have. Number two, encourage yourself. Develop the mindset where you can know that what you're doing makes sense because you say it does, okay? Or because you have that inner movement of spirit, if you will, that's telling you to go forward. So, those are the two key things I want you to keep in mind as you consider um, going forward with this whole concept, because you come to that fork in the road where you have to choose and you have to decide which way to go. And you have to make that decision and have to have the confidence in and of yourself to say, I am making a decision that's right for me, that's true to my vision of myself and what I want to see come into light. So I hope this is encouraging you today, or at least giving you food for thought, something to think about as you go forth. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Make sure to come back next time for more tips and insights on your entrepreneurial journey. Until next time, stay supercharged.